got about 35 minutes.
Most of the scriptures.
How many?
45.
Okay. Okay, let me start. First question. This is kind of a heavy one to start out, so I don't know if we should start out with this one or not.
Fine.
But okay.
I will answer any question except boxers or briefs.
Oh, somebody has prepped you, man.
Okay, now here's the first question. Have you read the Reveal study, and what is your take on the whole thing? Reveal, Willow Creek.
Of course, I've read the Reveal study. Bill and Lynn Hybels are dear friends of Kay and mine, and many of the staff. We've been. Willow was started 5 years before Saddleback, and so we have been together. Saddleback's 28 years old. I think Willow's about 34 or something like that. And we have loved each other all along. My initial reaction to us was just complete sadness, because my real gut feeling is it wasn't necessary. In other words, you don't have to not grow spiritual people. There are ways to do it. And there are actually, and if you want me to go into detail, I will go into detail. There are, as I mentioned in this last service, that the first year of the church, I focused on growing the church. But then after I crashed and burned at the end of the first year, I said, okay, Lord, what do you want me to do? And he said, I want you to grow people. Purpose-driven strategy is not a church growth strategy. It is a spiritual maturity strategy. It's bringing people closer and closer to Christ. First you get them to know Christ, then to love Christ, then to love Christ's family, then to grow in Christ, then to serve Christ, and then to share Christ. We have been doing these steps, this process, for 28 years. And I now have people on my staff who were born at Saddleback, saved at Saddleback, and now serving at Saddleback. And so I've watched over a 28-year period an entire generation come to Christ and watch them grow up. Spiritual maturity is not rocket science. It is, there are certain things, if we'll just do it the way Jesus did it. The biggest mistake that churches make is we think that sermons will produce spiritual maturity. They will not. Bill Hybels is one of the greatest preachers in history, and his messages are incredible. But if people don't take notes, they forget 95% of what they hear within 72 hours. Well, if you're forgetting 95% of everything you've heard in your lifetime, that is not going to produce spiritual maturity. So there are simple tools that Saddleback developed early on that have been made fun of and laughed at, stuff like that, but have produced spiritual maturity. One of them, real simple, was the outline. In our church, for 28 years, people take notes every week, which means they go home with far more than they would if they didn't take notes. And I've had a lot of people come to Saddleback, like Bruce Wilkinson and Chuck Colson and John Stott, and many people say, this is the most attentive church I've ever been to. Why? Because we trained them how to take notes so that they would remember what they were going to learn, and then they review it. The second thing is not only notes, is Saddleback is built on a series of 5 covenants. Jesus had a process by which he took people from no faith in Christ to deep disciple. And the very first words of Jesus, the first public words of Jesus, when he says to his disciples, is he says, come and see. He's walking by one day, and Peter or John and Andrew are mending their nets, and they said, where are you going, Lord? And he says, come and see. Now that's the entry point for faith. Come and see. And that's okay. And Willow has done this, and Saddleback's done it, a lot of churches done the come and see. Come check us out, okay? What's the commitment level of come and see? Nothing. Just show up. All you got to do is show up. Sit in the back, don't sing anything, say anything, sacrifice anything, just show up. But Jesus never left them there. And from come and see, he took them through consistent steps. And all through the 3.5 years of ministry, he's turning up the heat. And as they begin to follow him, he starts saying, now, you're my disciple if, and he redefines commitment. You're my disciple if you love one another. You're my disciple if you bear fruit. You're my disciple if you take up your cross, deny yourself, and follow me. And on and on. And he's turning up the heat until he at one point he says, you're my disciple if you eat my flesh and drink my blood. And people go, ugh, you got to be kidding. And it says many people couldn't understand that. It says they walked away because his saying was too hard. And Jesus turns around to his disciples and said, you guys going to leave me too? And they go, where are we going to go, Lord? You know, we got no place to go. Now, then, right before the cross, he turns around to them and he says, if you want to follow me, you got to take up your cross, deny yourself, and follow me. Now, take up your cross. In those days, nobody took up a cross unless the Romans were going to nail them to it. So he's saying, come and die. Now, would you agree that there's a huge difference in commitment between come and see and come and die? Oh, yeah. Now, he doesn't say that. He doesn't say come and die the very first. He's 3 years into a relationship with them. And he's moving them through. There's a big difference between come and see and eat my flesh and drink my blood. That's a whole bit different level of commitment. And so churches have not understood that commitment is sequential, systematic, and processed. And to move them from come and see to come and die is what purpose-driven is all about. And that's what we've been doing, moving them through these stages for 28 years. Now what happens is churches tend to be one or the other. You're either a come and see church or you're a come and die church. And the come and see churches bring them in the front door and they win a lot of people to Christ, but they don't deepen them to deeper levels of maturity. Or there's the come and die church who doesn't reach anybody for Christ. And they got their frozen chosen that they keep taking deeper and deeper and deeper, but those people have koinonitis. They're so close, nobody else can break into it. What a church has to do is see that come and see and come and die is the whole spectrum. And how do you get people from come and see to come and die? I don't have time to go into that. It's a whole seminar. But there are classes, there are covenants, there are commitments, there are cells, there's coaching. Jesus used one to group, one to one-on-one, one to large group, and all of these have to be built into discipleship. It's not just one-on-one. It's not just one to small group. It's not just one to big crowd. There's a combination. And you have to take into account, you got me going on this one. You have to take into account the fact that people learn in different ways. Some people learn through the ear gate by hearing. And most of church discipleship is all about listening. Okay, we develop big ears. Other people say, no, I hate to listen. I want to read it. I want to read it. I learn through reading. And some people say, no, I hate to read. I want to talk about it. So let's discuss it. Some people learn through the ear, some through the eyes, some through the mouth. Let's talk about it. Some people say, no, I don't even want to hear it or read it or talk about it. I want to do it. Don't give me a manual to how to run my computer. Just let me start tinkering with it. And I'll figure it out by doing it. We learn in different ways. Most churches have not built the levels of learning into discipleship. And so we only have one way of learning, hearing, and then they forget 95% in 72 hours, and it's no wonder we don't take them to maturity. It's not that the content is bad, it's that the delivery system is wrong, and it's not systematic and sequential. So I have deep feelings about the Reveal study. And the thing is, I'm sad. First place, people should not use it as a hammer, because I don't know any other church that's doing that good on developing disciples. Most churches don't have a systematic sequential process by which they move people from unbeliever to member to maturing member to minister to missionary. But that's what we've been doing for 28 years, and that's why on this back end, I now have had 7,766 people go to the mission field out of Saddleback in the last 4 years. That only happens when you've got an intentional process to move them. There's coaching.